Now officially, Rotarians and guests, this is the Rotary Club of Toronto, and I'm Prince Kumar, the club president. It is my pleasure to welcome you to this very special meeting for our Rotary Club of Toronto Charitable Foundation today. We have really and truly an amazing agenda planned for you today. We will first go through our recognition of traditional lands, the invocation, and then I will ask you to stand for the national anthem and our toast. At this time, I'd like to acknowledge that we're on the traditional lands of many Indigenous peoples who have walked and cared for this land for 15,000 years. They include the Anishinabek, the Haudenosaunee, the Huron-Wendat, and the Treaty Peoples of the Mississauga of the Credit. As we unite today in Rotary Fellowship, help us to remember that unity makes us stronger and many hands working together makes the load lighter. May our gifts and talents be put to beneficial use in the global communities as we strive to build a polio-free world. If polio threatens one vulnerable child anywhere in this world, children everywhere remain at risk. We give thanks to Rotary for the opportunities it provides for service and for the fellowship here today. And now for a very special national anthem from right here from Anishinabek Police Services, if I can get that up, please. And please stand for the playing of the national anthem and remain standing till the Rotary toast.
Au Canada, terre de nos aïeux, ton front essaie de fleurs glorieux. Wicked glowing hearts, we see thee rise, the true north, strong and free. From far and wide, oh Canada, we stand on guard for thee. Oh Canada, Geche Wanaj, Nani Bueda, Megweche Wendonda, Nani Bueda, Megweche
Anishinabek Hasewin
In polio and to Rotary. Please be seated. It is now my pleasure to introduce our head table with me today. And for those in the room, when I call out your name, please stand and remain standing till all the head table has been introduced. Stephanie Christensen, Executive Director, ShelterBox, Rotary International Partner, and our Impact Reporter for today, who you will be hearing from shortly. Kevin Power, Rotarian since 2000, Classification Law Practice General, Partner Lawyer, Coutts Crane, Club Past President. He's a past member of the Rotary Club of Toronto Charitable Foundation, member of our events committee, and I believe one of the marshals for our parade coming up on Sunday, which is going to be quite exciting. Thank you, Kevin, for your service. Robert O'Brien, Rotarian since 1985, Classification Law Practice General, Partner Lawyer with Coutts Crane, Rotary Toronto Club past president, director and secretary of the Rotary Foundation Canada, and host to our keynote speaker. Robert brings a legacy that is 5 presidents from Coots Crane, 2 of them right here on the head table, another one with us in the room. Quite an amazing organization, and thank you all for your service. Rick Goldsmith, Rotarian since 1994, former classification public accounting, valuation services, retired partner, National Risk Management, KPMG, Rotary Club of Toronto board member, president and chair of our Rotary Club of Toronto Charitable Foundation. And under Rick's leadership, we have continued to build and develop on collaboration, not just with the club, but with the entire district. Thank you, Rick, for your service. Marnie Walker, special guest joining us today. Marnie from the Marnie McGee Estate Trustee, cousin of Marnie McGee. We're going to be hearing more about Marnie shortly. Dean Rohrs, chair of the Rotary Foundation Canada, trustee 2020-2023, the Rotary Foundation, one of our keynote speakers who will also be introduced shortly. John Germ, chair of the Rotary Foundation's Board of Trustees, past Rotary International president for the year 2016-2017, another one of our keynote speakers who will be introduced shortly. Dr. Bob Scott, former director of the Rotary Foundation, PolioPlus since 1985, also a keynote speaker. And if you need to know anything about polio, Bob is your man. Rotarians and guests, our head table. I can see we've got quite a few guests and visiting Rotarians joining us from all over. Thank you for everyone for joining us. I would like to make a special mention that our District Governor, Ron Dick, is also joining us. Welcome, Ron, to the meeting today. For all our visiting Rotarians, thank you for choosing our club for your makeup meeting and for this special Rotary meeting. We hope you enjoy our meeting. And to all our guests, if you're not a Rotarian yet, you will. I know you will want to join after today. So what I ask is go to our website, rotarytoronto.com, hit on that join button, and our member engagement committee is waiting to chat with you and discuss how you can be of service to Rotary. Rotarians, please welcome our visitors in the tradition of our great club. Now, for our Rotary members, you already know this, but for everyone else who's joining us today virtually, remember that this meeting is being recorded, and that includes all videos. So if you do not want to be recorded, simply turn off your camera. We will not be able to edit you out later. And of course, as always, be aware of your surroundings. And I know you present professionally, so that's awesome. Now, I mentioned this earlier in our Rotary members segment. We do have a brand new Rotary Minute video today. And this is part 2 of the How We Hobby segment. If I can get the video, please.
Laneways were designed so you had a place to keep your horse and your carriage. Toronto has engaged artists to paint the garage faces in many of the laneways, turning them into spectacular art galleries with tributes to the past. This is an example of some of the artwork you can see down the alleyways.
Embrace is much more important, and the connection between the two dancers. I think it's really this sort of connection in this dance, this deep connection with another human being, that makes it so addictive. It is, I think, rare in our society today, especially everything being virtual, obviously. So that's one of my favorite aspects of the dance.
Very technical. Not only do you have to keep in mind the weather, but you also have to know where the tides, whether they're going with you or against you. It was very scary. I started at 3 a.m. in the morning. There was no light or anything. But what makes you fall in love with open water swimming is actually the feeling when you have done the crossing, and at the end, it's that sense of accomplishment.
For more information, follow the Rotary Club of Toronto to learn how together we can make a difference.
Wow. So you ask, what are these Rotary Minute videos? Well, Rotary Minute videos, under a minute or so, are our stories about Rotarians, the projects that we work on, the organizations that we support. This was the 13th video that we have released. Now, they only work if you like and share. I know they're working because this year we've gotten 70, that's right, 70 potential new members in the hopper, and we already are in double digits in terms of net new members this year. So thank you for continuing to like and share those videos on social media. And thank you to our marketing and communications team for releasing them every other week. Now, we have a very special segment under our impact reporting. Last week, you heard from Kirello, President Kirello from Kiev, Rotary Club of Kiev, one of the clubs that we sponsored 30 years ago. One of the members of the Rotary Club of Kiev is the General Secretary and CEO of Rotary International today. And we heard from Kirello live from Kiev. And we talked about our ShelterBox campaign. We've already donated with our club and the foundation initially $15,000 towards the campaign. And then we additionally matched or set up a matching grant for another $30,000. First, I am so thankful to each and every one of you to be contributing towards this great cause. Today, with us, we've got ShelterBox right here. Stephanie Christensen, who is the Executive Director of ShelterBox Canada and is getting ready to go to either Poland or Moldova. We'll hear from her shortly. In fact, she was supposed to be live there this week, and I believe her trip is going to happen early next week sometime. So let's hear from Steph in terms of what is ShelterBox doing and where are these funds going. Stephanie, over to you.
Thank you, President Prince, and thank you all for having me. Everyone at ShelterBox is so incredibly grateful to all of you at the Rotary Club of Toronto for your ongoing support, and particularly for the way that you have come together for this response and made so much of our work possible. The situation in Ukraine continues to get worse, with upwards of 12 million people in urgent need of humanitarian assistance. ShelterBox is working very closely with humanitarian partners and Rotary clubs within Ukraine, Poland, and Moldova, as well as Rotary leadership to orchestrate our response. We're taking on a three-pronged response to this. The first thing that we're doing is providing mattresses in collective centers for people who have moved from Eastern to Western Ukraine and are sleeping in schools, churches, or arenas, and they desperately need bedding to sleep on. So we'll be providing those. We're also providing sealing off kits, which allow people to make damaged buildings safe to sleep in, as well as blankets, solar lights, water carriers, and other essential aid to people throughout Ukraine living in the front lines of the conflict. Finally, we know that there's need for all of the refugees who have left Ukraine. We're looking at responses in both Poland and Moldova. Moldova hasn't had as much humanitarian assistance as Poland because they haven't received as many refugees. However, per capita, they've received more refugees than any country and are not in the position to deal with these as well as Poland has. And so ShelterBox is looking at providing people with essential items like blankets and winter coats and things that they can carry with them, like hygiene kits, which are desperately needed. All of this is only possible because of each and every one of you, and we are so grateful for our continued partnership and everything that the Rotary Club of Toronto has made possible. I plan on doing a live report for you from the ground on Moldova when I'm there, and just again from all of us, thank you so much for making such a difference.
Thank you so much, Stephanie, and again, thank you to every single Rotarian that has supported this cause. With the matching grant, we're pretty soon going to be up to $75,000 in support. That is wonderful. Now, keep in mind, ShelterBox is also a Rotary International partner, and our club by the way, happens to be the largest donor of ShelterBox in the entire world. So thank you again for everyone for supporting this. Now, it is time for our very special End Polio Now program. And before I pass things on to our host, a reminder for our virtual audiences that if you have questions for our keynote speakers, please ensure that you send an email to question@rotarytoronto.com. That's question@rotarytoronto.com, and we'll see if we'll get a couple of them up there. So it is my pleasure now to pass the agenda over to Club Past President Robert O'Brien to do the honors. Robert, over to you.
Well, thank you, President Prince. Today is a very special moment in the life of Rotary and in the 37th year of Rotary's PolioPlus mission as we are getting closer and closer to ending polio. My role today is to serve as Emcee in a very special program to celebrate a very special gift. And we have very special people in the Rotary world. You could call them the League of Extraordinary Gentlemen and Gentle Ladies to join with us in today's celebration. First of all, and closest to home, is President of the Rotary Club of Toronto Charitable Foundation, Rick Goldsmith. Rick Goldsmith truly is an all-star. He is a retired partner of KPMG, where he spent his entire career and then has moved on to so many club activities, chair of research and appeals, being on our board of directors, being our treasurer for many, many years, and has been serving as president of the Rotary Club of Toronto Charitable Foundation. So over to Rick for a very important announcement.
Thank you, Robert, and good afternoon, Rotarians and guests. It's really my great pleasure to announce the wonderful and frankly astonishing bequeath of Marie McGee to our Toronto Rotary Club Foundation, specifically for use in fighting polio. Who is Marie McGee and what is the size of the gift? Every year, your Toronto Charitable Foundation gives about $10,000 more or less to Rotary Foundation to support Rotary's fight to eradicate polio. In its centennial year, our club gave an additional $100,000, and these funds flowed through Rotary Foundation Canada. This is by way of context for what you're about to hear. The bequeath we're receiving today from Marie McGee to fight polio is over $811,000. Occasions like this don't occur by chance. And before I introduce a relative of the donor, I'd like to acknowledge the legal and fiduciary work behind this event from both our member, Kevin Power of Coots Crane, on behalf of our foundation, and Delia Sequeira, who's also on the phone or on the Zoom, from RBC Wealth Management on behalf of the trustee of the estate. And now it is my pleasure to introduce Marnie Walker. Marnie is next of kin and trustee of the estate of Marie McGee. She's an entrepreneur and lives in both Canada and Panama. She joins us today from Panama and has expressed regrets she's unable to attend in person. Marie was Marnie's cousin and a friend for all her life, spending happy times together at the cottages on Lake Simcoe. Here's a photo of Marie teaching Marnie to walk. Marnie and Marie also had a special bond as they both shared a mobility issue and walked with difficulty. Marnie's problem did not come from polio, as did Marie's, but rather from a bone disease she developed when she was 17. With Marie as a role model, she refused to use a wheelchair and insisted on walking. And like Marie, she never viewed herself as handicapped, and so others did not view her that way either. It's a great pleasure to now introduce Marnie Walker, to share with us today a little bit more of the story of Marie McGee's life. Over to you, Marnie.
Good afternoon. It's great to be here. I want to share some of my experiences with Marie, and I think what sort of drove her to make this contribution. She was born in Toronto and lived her whole life there until her passing in January 2020 at the young age of 89. She was the daughter of Jack and Hannah Hart. She spent summers on Lake Simcoe, where her mother had grown up, and her extended family would. It was here that I got to know Marie. Her mother and my grandmother were sisters, and we had cottages beside each other. Their cottage was called Heart House, and it was always open to myself and my siblings, and we had many happy times there. Marie was predeceased by her husband, Dan McGee. He played the piano, and Marie sang, so their home was full of music and joy. She was a gifted singer and sang in choirs until well into her 80s. Marie loved plants, and especially orchids, and always managed to make them bloom, unlike myself. Marie worked for many years at the United Church office. She contracted polio when she was 4 years old. She tells stories about being in bed for a year and her father turning her. The polio left her with very deformed feet, but Marie was determined to walk, and walk she did until her passing. Marie never viewed herself as handicapped, and therefore she wasn't. Her sunny disposition and dry sense of humor meant she was always surrounded by friends and enjoying life. A few years before her death, she had some health issues and was in the hospital for an extended period. After she was well enough to leave the hospital, she went to Providence for rehabilitation. During the admission, they asked her what her expectation was, and she said, "I will walk." They looked at me and at her feet with disbelief and said that they didn't think she would ever walk, and her reply was, "I will walk." Polio profoundly affected Marie, and her gift to Polio End Now was her way of making sure that other children didn't suffer as she had. Over to you, Rick.
Thank you, Marnie. We're so grateful for Marie's gift and that you could join us today to tell us more about her. We can tell how proud you are and what a wonderful role model she was for you. Thank you very much. Over to you, Robert.
Well, thank you very much, President Rick, and to you, Marnie. Next on our program is another all-star in the Rotary world, Dean Rohrs, who is chair of the Rotary Foundation of Canada, and she has been chair for the past 2 years. She's on the board of trustees for the Rotary Foundation. She served as Rotary International Vice President, 2017-18, and before that as Rotary International Director. Dean is a world traveler. She grew up in Zambia and has lived in Namibia and South Africa. In a previous life, she was an operating room nurse in Professor Christian Bernard's first heart transplant team. She immigrated to Canada, fortunately for us, the country, 28 years ago. She lives in Vancouver. And for her, it's very early in the morning, and she's already had 2 Rotary meetings before this one and has several booked afterwards. Her responsibilities have taken her to Evanston, and for 10 years, she was a special advisor for the establishment and formation of the first Rotary clubs in the former Soviet Union, and she was a force to be reckoned with. Her experiences there alone could be the subject matter of another speech. And most recently, she and Betty Scripnet of the Rotary Foundation of Canada were responsible for administering a very special grant from the Government of Canada, Global Affairs, $6 million, which has just been completed. But today, the President Rick Goldsmith, has a big check to show. And as I'm on the board of directors for the Rotary Foundation of Canada, and Dean is my boss, so to speak, President Rick is going to hand me the big check in trust for the Rotary Foundation of Canada. And if Dean were here today and not in Vancouver, she would be delighted to personally accept this check, and I'm doing so in proxy for Dean. Dean, I understand you are coming with incoming president, Jennifer Jones, to our club on July the 5th, and you'll be hearing more about that from Michelle Guy. And when you visit our club then, this big check will be here for you for a photo opportunity. So, President Rick, here is the big check.
You want to read it, Robert?
It's payable to the Rotary Foundation Canada for $811,445.87, signed by President Rick Goldsmith and Blair Spinney, and it is Marie McGee Estate and Polio Now as the donor. So with that check, it's over to you, Dean.
Thank you. What can I say? What can I say other? Today, you make my heart sing. You make my heart sing for Marie McGee. You make my heart sing for your Rotary Club, this wonderful foundation that has recognized us. You make my heart sing for Rotary, and you make my heart sing for the children of the world. It's a gift beyond what words can actually say. It has a meaning so intense and so strong that it defies description. You have made this gift to us, to the Rotary Foundation and to the Rotary Foundation Canada. Our Rotary Foundation transforms these gifts that you give to us into the most amazing service projects that change lives, both close to home and around the world. And since it was founded more than 100 years ago, our foundation has spent more than $4 billion on life-changing and sustainable projects. Our mission is to help Rotary members to advance world understanding, goodwill, and peace under the banners of our 7 areas of focus. These are promoting peace, fighting disease, providing clear water, sanitation, and hygiene, saving mothers and children, supporting education, growing local economies, and protecting our environment. Our foundation is structured as an organized public charity, and it's operated exclusively for charitable purposes, and it's governed by a board of trustees. For 14 consecutive years, we have received a 4-star charity rating from Charity Navigator, which measures the purpose, the background, and the care that charities give to the promise that they make when they accept your dollars. In fact, it gets 100% rating, and we cannot be more prouder in the fact that we have authentication for the way that we look after our funds. Winston Churchill said that we make a living from what we get, but we make a life by what we give. So when you give to Rotary Foundation, you choose the area where your gift goes. You have a choice where your money can operate. We at the Rotary Foundation steward it. We invest it, we look after it, and then we release it again for the work that is needed to be done in our world. Last year alone, in the grants that we awarded, was over $170 million of work that was effectively done. And that's only in our grant money. That isn't in the effect of what those grants actually did. The headquarters of Rotary International and Rotary Foundation are in Evanston, Illinois, but we have associate foundations in Australia, in Brazil, Canada, Germany, India, Japan, Korea, and the United Kingdom. So as the Rotary Foundation Canada, we are one of these associate foundations, and we are registered as a charity in Canada. We actually receive all the donations made by Canadian Rotarians. We therefore can issue Canadian tax receipts. But what we do mainly is that we invest and we steward these funds here in Canada. And then when there's the call from the Rotary Foundation down in Everton to release the grant funds or the other funds that we are investing on behalf of our Canadian Rotarians, we release those funds to do the work that you have asked us to do. We work on behalf of Canadian Rotarians by negotiating with the Government of Canada for support of our polio initiative. And in fact, the Canadian government is in I think it's its second year of a 5-year agreement of about $190 million in support of the polio effort. But in totality, our Canadian government has given close to $1 billion for our polio effort. And that is mainly thank you to the advocacy work that Rotarians have done in working with this government to continue through this support. In addition, the Rotary Foundation Canada has partnered, as was mentioned previously by Rob, with Global Affairs Canada for funds in support of global grants for Canadian clubs. And this was a $6 million grant that we spent over 5 years. And the impact of that was beyond description. I cannot tell you, I had the honor of going to Peru and Colombia to audit some of these projects and to see the work that had been done there by Canadian clubs in serving humanity is, well, it just, what does it do? It makes your heart sing. These are the facts. But the real story comes in what the funds actually do. And I'm sure as a club, you have many stories to tell. But let me share just one very small personal story. My club sponsored through a district grant a day which is called Dress for Success. These are women that have lived on the streets, that have had unfortunate circumstances, who are now wanting to rejoin the mainstream and become viably employed again. It's an opportunity for them to come, select an outfit, to have their hair done and to have their faces made up and to prepare them for the journey ahead. I saw a woman standing in front of a mirror and the tears were running down her face. And she looked at me and she said, you know, for the first time, I see the me that I always knew I was, and not the me that the world has had to see. This is what Rotary does. So I stand here not by myself. I stand with every recipient of the funds that you have donated, of the work that you have done on behalf of Rotary. They stand side by side with me to say thank you. We don't give to an organization, we give to a cause. And our cause is Rotary. Thank you for believing in us. Over to you, Rob.
Well, thank you very much, Dean. Moving up the ladder from the Rotary Foundation of Canada and moving up in the Rotary world, we are so fortunate to have with us today John Germ, who is chair of the Rotary Foundation in Evanston. It's not every day, you know, that a past president of Rotary International comes to Toronto to visit our meeting. We hosted the RI president for our centennial, 100 years, just in 2013. But John Germ joined Rotary in 1976. Just think about that investment of time. His background is in engineering. He served 4 years in the U.S. Air Force, and he was CEO of the engineering firm Campbell and Associates. John served as president, vice president, director, foundation trustee, chair of Rotary's 200 Million Challenge, RI Board of Directors Executive Committee. He hails from the Rotary Club of Chattanooga, Tennessee. And in 2013, the White House recognized him as a champion of change. We are so pleased to welcome John Germ to our meeting today, and over to you, John.
Thank you very much. It's a pleasure for me to be with you on this very, very, very special day. It's not often you have the opportunity to recognize an individual such as Marie that has dedicated her life, and when she told the doctors and everyone that she could walk, she did it. And that is persistence. And that is what we are doing when we talk about polio and Rotary's dream of a polio-free world. You know, this money is going to do so much and protect so many children around the world. This $800 and some thousand is going to be matched 2-to-1 by the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation. So just think about, all of a sudden, you're talking about $2.4 million. That's not just the money that's important, it's what that money can do. And that money is going to help us reach our goal of the eradication of polio. You say that's a lot of money, and it is. Rotary's goal is to do $50 million per year, and then the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation will match us with $100 million, 2-to-1. And they have never done that for any other organization. Now, the faith that they have in you, and that we all have, and Rotarians around the world, is that the Gates Foundation does not dictate to Rotary as to how we spend that money, except for the fact that we have to spend it for the eradication of polio. Yes, it's $150 million. But you may not realize, but the annual cost for the eradication of polio is $900 million per year. You might say, well, that's not important to us because we don't have polio in Canada, and we don't have polio in the United States and a lot of other places. We didn't used to have COVID there either, did we? But we got COVID there because these viruses can travel freely from country to country. So thank you for your generous gift. Bob Scott was one of the ones that asked me to chair this $200 million campaign. Well, at the time, it was $100 million. And then we were about halfway through the campaign, and it became $200 million. You know what? It's not the money. It's what that money can do. And just think of the number of children that are walking freely now, number of people since 1979 that are now walking free because of you and the efforts of Rotarians all around the world. Pakistan has not had a case since January of 2021. Afghanistan is the only endemic country today that has any cases, and they have one. So yes, we're all on our way to a polio-free world. The Global Polio Eradication Initiative, which Rotary is part of, has set a plan. That plan says that by the end of December 2023, we will have eradicated both the wild polio virus, the vaccine-derived virus. And by the end of 2026, we will be able to declare polio eradicated from the face of the earth. Only the second virus that has ever done that. That is because of you That is because of Marie and all the individuals around the world that have contributed to make Rotary's dream of a polio-free world possible. So once again, I say thank you for allowing me to be with you, even though it may be virtual. The thanks is just as sincere as if I was there in person. And I say that on behalf of the children of the world. So thank you very much and keep up your great work. Rob, I think it's back to you.
Thank you very much, John Germ. Our last distinguished speaker among our gallery of all-stars is what you might call a closer. He is also what we think of as an elder statesman, but he's also a legend. Dr. Bob Scott has been at the vanguard of polio eradication since its beginning in 1985, traveling the world tirelessly to champion the cause. He's a Rotary warrior who has served as Rotary Foundation Trustee Chairman of the Foundation of Trustees, Vice President of Rotary International, Chair of the International PolioPlus Committee. He has been recognized by the United Nations Foundation as an outstanding leader in polio eradication. And in 2014, Rotary International designated a brand new award, the Dr. Bob Scott Award, to honor those fighting the disease. And the first recipient of the Dr. Bob Scott Award was none other than Bill Gates. Dr. Bob last spoke to our club as a keynote speaker in October 2019 before COVID and gave us a much longer presentation. But we're so glad, Dr. Bob, to have you here today to be part of this very special program and to be our closer. So over to you, Dr. Bob Scott.
Thank you so much for that kind introduction. And also, I should point out that when we were talking about this, you gave me the challenge of completing my presentation in 2 minutes. Well, it might be slightly longer, and I'm very grateful to past president for giving me an extra minute or two because he didn't go his full time. You know, in 1987-88, it was an honor for me to be the governor of the district. In 1988, Rob, you may remember, it was also the 75th anniversary of the Rotary Club of Toronto. And you had a president, an international president, come to your meeting that year as well. It was Chuck Keller. And Chuck was the president the first year we started seriously to ask for money. He presented it as a challenge. And it has been a challenge, and it continues to be a challenge. However, at the end of the year, although we said we'd raise 120 million was the goal, you all know that we managed to almost double that. And since then, we have continued to raise lots of money, thanks to people like past presidents. However, we've not finished, but the funds we've received today will undoubtedly, as has already been mentioned, make a tremendous difference in the near time and in the long time, because there will be children running and playing because of the funds that have been donated today. And we thank you so much. You know, when I spoke to the Rotary Club of Toronto as governor, I ended my little talk with these words, and I'm going to repeat them today because they are called the challenge. Blessed are those indeed who this life can find, a purpose that will fill their days and goals to fill their mind. This world is filled with little folk content with where they are, not knowing the joy success can bring, no will to go that far. Yet in this life, there is a need for some to lead the rest, to rise above the average life by giving off their best. Would you be those that dare to try, when challenged by the task, to rise to heights you've never seen? Is that too much to ask? This is your day, a world to win, great purpose to achieve. Let's accept the challenge of our goals and in ourselves believe. We will be proud of what we've done when at the close of day, we look back on battles won, and polio, yes, polio will have had its day. We can do it. We can do it. Back to you, President Prince.
Thank you. Wow, what a program that was. And thank you also to Robert, our host, and Rick as the president and chair of our Rotary Toronto Foundation. And a very special thanks to Marnie McGee for joining us. This is such a special day. And for your aunt and her contribution and inspiration that you've talked about. Thank you so much. Now, given the time, I do have a couple of questions, and I'll take this to our panel. And Dr. Bob, you so eloquently spoke about polio, and I know you're the expert in polio, and past President John Germ, you spoke a little bit about, we're looking at a polio-free world in 2026. However, we have seen polio resurgence in Ukraine as well. UNICEF has commented that there has been a great plan in Ukraine to control that. But with what's happening there, a question around, is 2026 possible, and what can Rotary do?
Yeah, well, the cases in Ukraine are vaccine-derived cases. There has not been any wild polio case in Ukraine. This is one of the unfortunate side effects, if you like, of using vaccine and not distributing it properly. And some of the kids get it and some of the kids don't get it. The ones that do get it, as they play in the dirty water, etc., excrete the virus that is in the vaccine because it has virus in it. The kids who have not received the vaccine will pick it up. And on occasion, unfortunately, it mutates. We've all heard about mutation in the last week or two, or last month or two. And it mutates to a form that is similar but not the same as the live vaccine, live virus. And these children, unfortunately, become paralyzed. We got a new vaccine out that we're using, and being cognizant of what's going on, I think we can get that under control. The worst area in the world is Nigeria, and in the last month, my goodness, that has improved. So yes, I'm sure we can do it. I hope we can do it.
Thank you. And that obviously talks about, the power of Rotary, and talks about how our continued support, like what we celebrated today, really goes out there and helps. So speaking about that inspirational support, and this goes out to Dean, Bob, and John, so you can take turns, and I'll ask you to come up, is share with us what has your most inspirational or memorable moment been as you've spent years, decades fighting polio?
Well, it goes back 25 years or more. We were in India, Anne and I were in India and doing the usual polio stuff, and they were having a national immunization day. We were woken about 4 and 5 in the morning to say our daughter, our youngest daughter, had delivered our latest grandchild, a young boy. He's now 25. Later that morning, we went to do some vaccinations, and we went into this horrible, dirty, stable area, and there was a young child aged very similar, allowing for the time, to our grandson. And Anne vaccinated that child. And as I said at the time, think of the difference we have made to that child and will survive and not at least get polio. That was probably one of the most inspiring moments in all our years trying to eradicate this horrible disease.
Thank you, Bob.
I guess mine was when I went to Nigeria. And when we got to Nigeria, 2:00 in the morning, and met by a little girl and one Rotarian. The next morning we got up to go do the polio vaccinations. And we were told that we could not because it was an American plot to sterilize the girl child. It would give cancer, all these other reasons. And when I was meeting with the health minister, I said, well, if you don't trust the United States, why don't you just get your vaccine from Indonesia, which is the largest Muslim country in the world, and they have a facility there to do that. But we did go out to a small state in Nigeria called Zamfara. And I never will forget that we were behind these tables. This lady came up to me, and she kind of handed me her child. It was in her arms. She had handed over. I'm not sure how old it was, maybe a year old or something like that. But she was holding it. And as I squeezed the child's mouth to put 2 drops of vaccine in there, and she looked at me and I looked at her. Neither one of us spoke each other's language, but she smiled. She smiled. And to me, that's the universal thank you. It made me feel good and she felt good because we were doing something so that her child would not be crippled. I don't know how you can not get involved when you can take a child like that a mother that you don't know trusts you, trusts Rotary to be sure that their child is protected. I'll remember that all my life. Dean?
Thank you. Yeah. You know, I think we who have been on NID's National Immunization Days all have those stories, those memories. Again, mine is Nigeria. Mine is northern Nigeria, right up in Boko Haram area, doing immunizations up in those tiny little villages, being dropped off under a tree, having the mothers come through the chili fields to us, bringing the babies. But I think for me, what really struck me was when we came back into the main cities, into Abuja, and we sat down on a weekly polio meeting, a reporting meeting of all the players that were involved in this whole immunization process here in Nigeria. Now, this was a number of years back when Nigeria still had polio and when we thought Nigeria would be the last country in the world that would be polio free. But we sat there that day on this table and we listened to reports coming in from every single one of the states, from every single one of the immunization teams. There were representatives from the CDC, from the World Health, from the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, from UNICEF, from local Rotarians, from government. And we were given a picture of just the finger on the pulse of what was being done in the world to eradicate polio. And that day, I stepped away from that meeting knowing we would succeed. We had a team in place. We had a workforce across the world that was so powerful. And we would, with what we were doing for polio, leave a legacy for the rest of the world to follow. And we've seen it happen now in COVID. We saw it during Ebola. We have seen how the world reacts to pandemics because of the work that was done with polio. That told me that Rotary and the Rotary partnerships, because of the Rotary vision, would succeed in polio. So I firmly believe 2025, 2026, it will be goodbye polio. Thank you.
Thank you again. We've spoken about legacy, and friends, both our Rotary Toronto Foundation and Rotary International Foundation offer such wonderful ways to leave legacies. So I implore you to look into that if you so choose. And speaking of which, again, thank you to Marie McGee in her estate, and for Marnie for sharing her aunt's story and for kindness today. Next Friday, March 25th, will be another hybrid meeting, and after that will be another hybrid meeting. So folks, for those that are joining us virtually, remember to sign up at least 2 days in advance with Carol so you can get your lunch tickets and we can see you here at the National Club. March 25th, 3 days. Carol's looking for 3 days, not just 2. So make sure you sign up in advance, please. March 25th, our guest speaker, a wonderful guest speaker, Hillary Brown, the first female foreign correspondent, and her topic will be The War Tourist, Memoirs of a Foreign Correspondent. And following that, I believe we've got another wonderful topic that looks at the war in Ukraine and what's happening in the world. So please, next 2 weeks are going to be, again, very, very special. Thank you, everyone who has participated. Thank you for everyone who has joined us internationally today, virtually, for this meeting, in this very, very special meeting. And I leave you with thoughts of those legacies and those memories, not just for Marie McGee, but for everyone that has contributed. Our foundations are big today because of the contributions and the legacies that people have left. That's how our Rotary Toronto Foundation got started as well, was through a legacy. So it is so important for us to continue that work forward as we get into the next few years. Thank you again, everyone, and have a wonderful weekend. This meeting is adjourned.